tonight?
I was dealing with this. Throughout my whole. Well, I had people jealous of me throughout my whole career before professional.
I had to always remind Tank, Floyd is Floyd, but you're Gervonta Davis.
That's right. Like, I gotta do that.
A lot of people don't know that what Floyd do. He said.
So you feel like it was a sub? Like he was subbing you? Like, oh, like
he was going at me. He was going at me.
The room is suffocatingly quiet, but you can feel the air pressure dropping like a storm about to tear the roof off the building. Two men sit across a narrow glass table, separated by barely 3 feet of space and 30 years of unresolved boxing history. To the left, wrapped in custom leather and wearing that familiar, cold, untouchable posture, is Floyd "Money" Mayweather. 50 fights, 0 losses, 5 division world titles, and an empire built on being completely invulnerable inside a ring. To the right, slouching with the dangerous, relaxed stillness of a predator that doesn't need to bark to make you afraid, sits Terence "Bud" Crawford, 2-time undisputed champion, the first male boxer in history to hold all 4 belts in 2 weight divisions, and a man whose entire career has been driven by a quiet, murderous rage toward anyone who dares to doubt him. For years, this conversation was confined to barbershops, late-night Twitter debates, and hypothetical fantasy matchups. Fans would argue until their voices broke. Could Floyd's untouchable Philly shell and masterclass distance neutralize the switch-hitting, ruthless violence of Bud Crawford? Or would Crawford's uncanny ability to adapt, switch southpaw, and dismantle every style put the first real dent in Mayweather's golden legacy? When the cameras started rolling for this exclusive sit-down, everyone expected corporate answers. We expected polished PR answers, mutual respect, and safe, diplomatic talk about greatness. We were wrong. Within 90 seconds, the polite smiles completely melted away. The tone shifted from analytical to personal. The voices dropped into a deadly, low-register cadence where every word carries weight. Floyd pulled out his classic defensive armor, his 5-ring belts, his pay-per-view paydays, and his unblemished 50-0 record. But Bud Crawford didn't blink. He didn't look impressed. Instead, Crawford leaned forward, looked Floyd dead in the eyes, and shattered the unwritten rule of modern boxing hierarchy. What followed wasn't just an interview. It was a verbal execution, a psychological war, and the most intensely heated face-to-face sit-down in the history of combat sports. To understand why this face-to-face interview turned into an absolute powder keg, you have to look at the massive tectonic shift that has been happening underneath the sport of boxing over the past decade. For nearly 20 years, Floyd Mayweather wasn't just the king of boxing. He was the sun that the entire boxing universe orbited around. Everything in modern combat sports, from the way fighters negotiate their purses, to the emphasis on remaining undefeated, to the way pay-per-view events are marketed, was built on the blueprint Floyd created. He turned defense into an art form, but more importantly, he turned the business of boxing into a fortress. Floyd made people pay millions of dollars just hoping to see him lose, and then he systematically outsmarted every single fighter who walked through those ropes. When Floyd retired after beating Conor McGregor to move to 50-0, he left behind a vacuum. But he also left behind a heavy, almost suffocating shadow over every fighter who came after him. Enter Terence "Bud" Crawford. Hailing from Omaha, Nebraska, a city not traditionally known as a global boxing capital, Crawford built his career on pure, unadulterated grit and unbelievable boxing IQ. He didn't have the grand promotional machine backing him in the beginning. He didn't have the flash, the jewelry, or the early mainstream hype machine. What he had was a mean streak that makes seasoned fighters uncomfortable just watching him from ringside. Bud is a natural right-hander who fights out of southpaw, a master of spatial awareness who can read your rhythm in 2 rounds and then spend the next 10 rounds completely taking your soul apart piece by piece. When Crawford systematically dismantled Errol Spence Jr. in July 2023, a fight that was supposed to be a 50-50 toss-up, he didn't just win a boxing match. He put on a masterclass of destruction so absolute that the entire combat sports community was forced to pause and ask a question that felt almost blasphemous to Mayweather loyalists. Asterisk, is Terence Crawford actually a more lethal, complete fighter than Floyd Mayweather ever was? Asterisk, that single question is the spark that ignited this firestorm. When the sit-down interview opened, the moderator tried to set a civil tone. He asked both men to comment on their respective paths to greatness and how they viewed the evolution of the welterweight division. But Floyd couldn't help himself. Floyd's defense mechanism has always been his resume. Before Terence could even finish answering a question about his victory over Spence, Floyd cut in, tilting his head back with that iconic, dismissive smirk. "Look, Terence is a hell of a fighter," Floyd started, using the exact phrase he always uses right before he diminishes someone's achievements. "He's done great things in the sport. I give credit where credit is due. But let's keep it real and talk about facts, not feelings. When you talk about the top tier of this sport, when you talk about TBE, the best ever, you're talking about a guy who beat 23 world champions. You're talking about a guy who came up from super featherweight all the way to light middleweight, never suffered a cut, never was knocked down officially, and beat everyone they put in front of him. Genaro Hernandez, Diego Corrales, Arturo Gatti, Oscar de la Hoya, Miguel Cotto, Shane Mosley, Manny Pacquiao, Canelo Alvarez. The list goes on. So while everybody is excited about what's happening today, you gotta respect the foundation. You gotta respect the man who made it possible for guys like Terence to even get those big purses. It was classic Floyd. Smooth, calculated.
I was dealing with this. Throughout my whole. Well, I had people jealous of me throughout my whole career before a professional. Jealousy comes with the territory. I sell an arena out every time, and I say to myself, y'all people not tired? Y'all done been here 50. We done sold the arena out 50 times, and y'all keep coming up short. We could do it 50 more times. Y'all gonna keep coming up short. What's meant to be in life is meant to be. And Cruz, and as far as what Cruz would take, he know he didn't win. No, he didn't win at all. And if Tank really would have lost the fight, I would have said he lost. And of course, we in California. This is Mexico. So, I mean, if you...
Wrapped in a blanket of historical authority. In almost any other interview setting, the opponent would nod, offer a polite compliment about Floyd's legendary run, and fall back into line. But Terence Crawford isn't built like other fighters. As Floyd spoke, Crawford didn't fidget. He didn't interrupt. He just leaned back in his chair, crossed his arms, and stared at Floyd with a look that was cold enough to freeze water. When Floyd finally paused, expecting Crawford to accept the compliment-wrapped disrespect, Crawford let out a slow, heavy breath. "You see, Floyd," Crawford began, his Omaha accent sharp and deliberate. "That's your problem right there. Every time somebody mentions my name, every time somebody says Bud Crawford is doing something special, you can't just let it be. You gotta immediately jump up and start reading your resume off like a teleprompter. You gotta start listing names from 20 years ago because you're terrified that the world is starting to realize something you've been running from." Floyd's smirk twitched. "Terrified of what? Check the bank account, young man. Check the record. 50-0. I don't give a damn about your bank account." "Floyd," Crawford shot back, his voice dropping an octave, tightening the tension in the room so fast the production crew stopped moving. "We aren't talking about accounting right now. We're talking about fighting. We're talking about what happens when two men get in that ring and somebody has to break. You spent your whole career managing risk. You were a master at it, I give you that. You picked guys when they were too young or when they were too old or when they were drained. When you fought Canelo, he was a 23-year-old kid who didn't know how to cut off the ring yet. When you fought Manny, you waited 6 years until his shoulder was shot and his legs were gone. But when I step in that ring, I fight the absolute best version of every man in front of me, and I don't just beat him on points. I break their spirit." The silence in the room following Crawford's statement was deafening. You could hear the hum of the studio lights. Floyd's eyes narrowed. The charming, media-trained persona was officially stripped away, revealing the hyper-competitive, vengeful fighter underneath. Floyd adjusted his jacket, leaning across the table until he was inches away from Crawford's face. The cool demeanor was gone. This was Pretty Boy Floyd, the man who grew up in the grueling, throw-down gyms of Grand Rapids, Michigan, ready to bite your head off if you questioned his pedigree. Break their spirit? Floyd scoffed, tapping his chest with 3 fingers. You talking to me about breaking spirits? I walked through 5 weight classes, Terence. 5. When I was at 130 pounds, destroying Diego Corrales. A guy who was bigger than me, hitting harder than me. I wasn't managing risk. I was putting on a boxing clinic. When I fought Jose Luis Castillo with a tore-up rotator cuff, I went out there and dug it out. You want to talk about Errol Spence? Errol Spence was coming off a horrific car accident and a 2-year layoff. You fought a guy who was a shell of himself, and you want to sit here and act like you discovered fire. Don't do that, Crawford interrupted calmly, raising his hand. Don't do that female stuff, Floyd. Don't downplay Errol Spence now just because I made it look easy. Before that fight, every single analyst in boxing, every single trainer, half of your own camp was saying Errol was going to push me back, hit too hard, and break me down. They said Errol was the big bad wolf at 147. Then I got in there, I dropped him 3 times, I jabbed his eyes shut, and I stopped him. The moment I made him look like an amateur, suddenly the narrative changes to, oh, Errol was shot. No, Floyd. He wasn't shot. I'm just that much better than everybody else, including the guys you fought. This is where the debate transcended basic trash talk and dove deep into the sweet science, the technical mechanics that separate good fighters from immortal legends. Floyd scoffed and began dissecting Crawford's technical stance. You switch hit. It's cute. It works against guys who don't know how to control the lead foot. But you leave yourself open on the transition, bud. Every time you shift from orthodox to southpaw against a fighter with real timing, you drop your right hand by 2 inches. A real counterpuncher, a guy with my pull counter, a guy who understands geometry inside that ring, is gonna catch you coming in every single time. You get hit, Terence. Agitagus Cavaliauskas dropped you. Gamboa hurt you. You get touched because your chin stays in the air when you try to prove how tough you are. Crawford chuckled, leaning.
A lot of people don't know that what Floyd do. He said.
So you feel like it was a sub, like he was subbing you, like, oh, like
he was going at me. He was going at me, and I knew for sure he was going at me. That's why I went at him. There's no reason for me to go at Floyd.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Cause it's weird. I feel like y'all got, I would say love hate, but it's been like the last interview you showed them love. This week it was whatever. But is that sometimes like, you know, is it just like big bro, little bro seeing things different, or what is it to you?
No, Floyd don't never. He felt as though I'm at that point where as though I passed him. And I'm doing it at a young age. Wait, like when Floyd was 29, you'll see, bro.
Yeah.
That deal that I'm talking about.
Yeah. Oh, that's a part of
that deal. He don't know about that yet. But that's bigger than his deal.
Damn. Wow.
And I'm just releasing it.
Exclusive. That's exclusive. Bigger than Floyd deal?
Yeah.
Ain't no cap, nigga. That's a lot of bread.
Back as if he had just baited Floyd right into his trap. You want to talk about getting touched? Crawford asked. Floyd, you spent the second half of your career hiding behind that Philly shell, sliding along the ropes, and throwing one jab to the body and a pull counter just to steal rounds on the judges' scorecards. You turned the sport into an Olympic fencing match. Yeah, you didn't get hit much, but you also didn't take any real risks. When Shane Mosley landed that right hand on you in round 2, your knees buckled like a lawn chair. Your eyes went wide as silver dollars, and what did you do? You grabbed him for dear life. You held on like a drowning man. Crawford leaned forward again, locking eyes with Mayweather. When I get hit, Floyd, it doesn't scare me. It activates me. You get hit, you run and hide behind the referee and the judges. I get hit, I look at the guy, I smile, and I figure out how to destroy his life. That's the difference between a master technician who fights to survive and a master technician who fights to eliminate you. You're a businessman who knows how to box. I'm a killer who learned the science. The technical comparison between their 2 prime styles is where boxing purists lose their minds. Floyd Mayweather's defense was built on anticipation, shoulder placement, and spatial distance. His signature Philly shell allowed him to roll right hands off his left shoulder, counter over the top with a laser-precise straight right, and pivot off the ropes before his opponent could even reset their feet. Floyd's footwork was poetry. He never took a wasted step, never lost his balance, and forced opponents to punch at air until their arms grew heavy with lactic acid. Crawford, on the other hand, represents the modern evolution of modern combat mechanics. He isn't just a southpaw or an orthodox fighter. He is an ambidextrous nightmare. When Bud switches stances, he doesn't just change his hands. He changes his opponent's entire visual field. He uses lead hand traps, pulling down an opponent's guard to land step through uppercuts, and his counter timing isn't based on waiting for you to miss. It's based on forcing you to throw where he wants you to throw. You talk about your Philly shell, Crawford continued, his voice sharp and precise. You think that shell works against a southpaw who can hit you from angles you can't see? The Philly shell leaves your body open to the straight left hand. Manny Pacquiao was landing straight lefts on you all night when he actually threw punches. Judah hit you with the straight left and had you dropping your glove to the canvas in round 2. Now imagine me, 69-inch reach, switching southpaw, sitting down on a straight left right down the pipe through your shoulder roll. What are you gonna do then, Floyd? You can't shoulder roll a shot that's coming from your blind side. Floyd's facial expression hardened. The technical breakdown hit a nerve because Floyd knows the physics of boxing better than anyone on earth. He knew Crawford wasn't just talking empty trash. He was breaking down real tactical vulnerabilities. You think you're the first guy to talk about angles? Floyd snapped back, his voice rising as he lost his composure. You think Zab Judah was the first guy to throw a straight left hand at me? You think Manny Pacquiao didn't try to flood me with angles? What happened when they got in there, Terence? What happened? They realized that what looks easy from the couch is impossible inside those 16 feet. You can talk about angles all day, but when you stand across from me, your brain freezes up. Because every time you throw a punch, you get hit with something you didn't see coming. I take away your best weapon in round 1. By round 3, you're second-guessing everything you've done since you were 8 years old. You didn't take away anything from guys in their prime, Floyd, Crawford shouted, breaking his quiet demeanor for the first time in the sit-down. You waited them out. That's your whole legacy. You waited out Pacquiao. You avoided Paul Williams when he was a walking nightmare at 147. You didn't want no smoke with Antonio Margarito when he was smashing people. You played the system. Floyd, you controlled the dates, you controlled the glove sizes, you controlled the ring size, you controlled the drug testing, you controlled the weight drain catchweights. You built a corporate cocoon around yourself so you could never lose. I was the attraction. Floyd yelled back, slamming his hand down onto the glass table, making the microphones clip. I built that. I earned the right to control everything because I brought the money to the table. You think promoters gave me that power? I took it. I fought my way out of top rank. I put my own money on the line. I paid $750,000 to buy out my own contract because I believed in myself when nobody else did. You stayed with Bob Arum for years complaining like a victim because you couldn't sell tickets in your own hometown. That was a low blow, and everyone in the room knew it. The jab about ticket sales and pay-per-view numbers has always been Floyd's ultimate weapon against modern fighters. Floyd measured greatness in green dollars, cents, revenue, Forbes lists. Crawford stood up from his chair. The security guards in the corners immediately took a step forward, their hands tensing. For 3 terrifying seconds, it looked like the face-to-face was going to turn into a brawl right there on the studio floor. Crawford stood over the table, glaring down at Floyd, his fists clenched at his sides. "Look at you," Crawford said softly, his voice trembling with genuine disgust. "Look at what you've reduced this sport to. Every single time we talk about who the greatest warrior is, you bring up money. You taught an entire generation of kids, Shakur, Tank, all these."
We always see solid relationships end due to a female, man. They've started multiple wars. There's a reason why a lot of men are locked up right now. There's a reason why a lot of men are in that grave right now. I believe in this case, we don't know all the details, but I'm just gonna go ahead and assume that Tank smashed Floyd's daughter. Tank went ahead and smashed Floyd's daughter on this one and sullied the relationship. It was done after that. But there had to be a reason why he went ahead and went that route. And I think he went that route because there wasn't enough money coming in. And Tank probably thought that it was going to be better than it was early on. So we said, you know what? Hey, she throwing it at me. Let me go ahead and do what I do. And from that instance, Floyd said, hey, you got the game up. I'm about to let you really know how it is. You about to go up against a real go-getter, a real headhunter. Tank knock.
Young guys coming up, that it's better to protect an undefeated record and make money than it is to test your limits against the best. You ruined the culture of boxing. Floyd, you made fighters scared to lose. You made fighters think that taking a loss means your career is over. Floyd didn't stand up, but he leaned forward, looking up at Crawford with unyielding eyes. I saved fighters' brains. Terence? Floyd said, his tone suddenly cold, measured, and deadly serious. I taught fighters how to walk away from this sport with hundreds of millions of dollars. All their faculties intact, able to play with their kids, build businesses, and live like kings. You want to be a martyr? You want to go out there and take CTE, suffer brain damage, and lose half your purse to promoters just so some internet fans can say, "Oh, Bud Crawford is a real warrior?" Go ahead, be a hero. See where that gets you when you're 50 years old and can't remember your kids' names. I got out clean, 50-0. Rich, healthy, and undisputed. That ain't ruining boxing. That's winning life. Crawford slowly sat back down, shaking his head. No, Floyd, Crawford said softly. That's where you're wrong. Boxing isn't just a business. It's a calling. It's about finding out who the baddest man on the planet is when all the money, all the lights, and all the excuses are stripped away. You spent your whole life protecting your record because you were terrified of finding out what would happen if somebody truly pushed you past your limits. You chose safety over immortality. Safety? Floyd laughed out loud, though the laugh lacked any real warmth. I fought 38 world champions. I fought Hall of Famers back to back to back. Oscar, Cotto, Mosley, Marquez, Pacquiao, Canelo. You fought one Hall of Famer in your entire career. Errol Spence. One. You spent half your career fighting Sean Porter, Amir Khan, and Kell Brook after they already got broken by other guys. Don't talk to me about safety when your resume fits on the back of a postage stamp. Let's line him up then. Crawford shot back. Let's compare my prime victories to yours. When you fought Corrales, he was making 130 pounds while starving himself to death. When you fought Canelo, you forced a 23-year-old kid to drain himself down to a 152-pound catchweight because you were scared of his size. When I fought Spence, there were no catchweights, no rehydration clauses, no games. I fought him at his weight, at his best, and I destroyed him. You want to talk about resumes? If you and I were in the same era, Floyd, same age, same weight, you know in your heart you couldn't hold my water. Floyd leaned back, folding his arms. You couldn't touch me, bud. You couldn't touch me with a handful of rice. The intensity between these two men isn't just about personal pride. It represents the ultimate philosophical war in the history of combat sports. On one side, you have Floyd Mayweather, the absolute pinnacle of defensive boxing, business intellect, and athletic preservation. On the other side, you have Terence Crawford, the absolute pinnacle of offensive adaptability, ruthless finishing ability, and modern tactical execution. If these two men had met in a square ring, both in their absolute physical and mental primes at 147 pounds, it would have been the most complex, high-stakes chess match in boxing history. Imagine the scene: Vegas, under the blinding lights of the MGM Grand. In the opening 3 rounds, Floyd would do what Floyd always did: use his jab to the body to establish distance, measuring Crawford's reach and tracking his timing. Floyd would stay in his orthodox stance, using quick lateral movement to keep Crawford from setting his feet. But unlike Floyd's previous opponents, Crawford wouldn't rush in blindly out of frustration. Crawford is a master patient stalker. In rounds 4 through 6, Crawford would make the adjustment that defines his career. He would switch to southpaw, taking away Floyd's primary weapon, his jab to the body, and forcing Floyd to defend against the straight left hand down the center. Crawford's physical advantages would begin to show. Bud possesses a 74-inch reach compared to Floyd's 72-inch reach, and his ability to generate power while stepping backward is something Floyd rarely encountered in his career. Where Marcos Maidana was able to swarm Floyd with wild, awkward overhands to win rounds, Crawford would use precise, calculated pressure, stepping on Floyd's lead foot to trap him against the ropes. However, betting against Floyd Mayweather inside a boxing ring is historically a fool's errand. Floyd's greatest strength was never just his speed or his defense. It was his elite, unmatched ring intelligence. When Floyd gets pushed into a corner, he doesn't panic. He adapts. Floyd would begin timing Crawford's entry, using his signature lead right hand over Crawford's jab, dodging under Crawford's hooks, and clinching at the exact right moment to break Crawford's momentum and frustrate his rhythm. The final rounds would be a brutal, agonizing battle of.
Always see solid relationships end due to a female, man. They've started multiple wars. They're a reason why a lot of men are locked up right now. They're a reason why a lot of men are in that grave right now. I believe in this case, we don't know all the details, but I'm just going to go ahead and assume that Tank smashed Floyd's daughter. Tank went ahead and smashed Floyd's daughter on this one and sullied the relationship. It was done after that. But there had to be a reason why he went ahead and went that route. And I think he went that route because there wasn't enough money coming in. And Tank probably thought that it was going to be better than it was early on. So he says, you know what? Hey, she throwing it at me. Let me go ahead and do what I do. And from that instance, Floyd said, hey, you got the game up. I'm about to let you really know how it is. You about to go up against a real go-getter, a real headhunter. Tank not.
Wills. Crawford trying to land that one fight-altering, soul-stealing combination. Floyd using every trick, every pivot, every defensive shell, and every veteran clinch learned over 25 years to survive and score points. As the interview neared its conclusion, the host asked one final question. When history looks back 50 years from now on Floyd Mayweather and Terence Crawford, what will be the defining story of this era? Floyd looked directly into the camera, his posture straight, his voice calm again, returning to his fortress. History already wrote my story, Floyd said softly. They can debate, they can hate, they can make up fantasy fights all day long. But when you look at the record books, there's only one name at the top with a flawless record, the biggest earnings, and zero excuses. I did it first, I did it best, and I walked away with everything. Nobody beat Floyd Mayweather. Not in the ring, not in the courtroom, and not in the bank. Crawford stared at Floyd for a long moment, then looked directly into the lens with a cold, unblinking glare that sent a chill through everyone watching. History knows the truth, Crawford said, his voice quiet, steady, and terrifyingly confident. Floyd built a kingdom of gold, but I built a legacy of iron. Money fades, records get broken, but real fight fans know who the true fighter was. Floyd fought for his record. I fight for the soul of the sport. And if we ever lock that door with no cameras, no judges, and no catchweights, everybody in this room knows who walks out of that ring. Floyd didn't offer a handshake. Crawford didn't ask for one. As the lights dimmed in the studio, the two men remained seated across from each other, staring in complete silence. Two kings from two different eras, bound together by an unmatched perfection that no one else in the world will ever truly understand. Now, I want to hear from you down in the comments. If a prime Floyd Money Mayweather fought a prime Terence Bud Crawford at 147 pounds over 12 rounds, who takes it? Does Floyd's untouchable defense and ring IQ carry him to another 12-round decision? Or does Bud Crawford's switch-hitting power and cold-blooded instincts inflict the first real loss on Floyd's 50-0 record? Drop your detailed breakdown below, hit that like button, and subscribe for more deep combat sports breakdowns.